You may have a seat, and if we haven't met before, I'm Rob, and I'm so excited that you're here today. I always get a little nostalgic at this time of year because this is the kind of anniversary of when we started our church. It was August 15th, 2010, that we held our very first preview service. And I remember saying in that service the story of Abraham and Sarah and how God called them to leave what they knew and the security that they had known their entire lives, and to go to somewhere that God would show them, not just so that he could bless them, but so that he could bless the whole world through them. That step started, there's 1,000-mile journey started with a single step. I remember asking people that day, what step might God be asking you to take? And we had dozens of people, or maybe hundreds of people, say yes to that through the years. And now we're in this place 12 years later where it feels like we have gone 1,000 miles, or at least I feel like we've gone 1,000 miles, but yet there's so much joy in that. I remember the privilege of dedicating babies that are now in middle school. That's crazy. I remember Mike, Courtney, off this daring invitation to try church he'd never tried. And he's like, what do? You can just sit and observe. So for 3 weeks, Mike sat and observed. He watched people get up, sit down, pray. He asked questions. Then he joined and found friends, joined some groups, became part of the prayer group. And just a couple years ago, Mike was baptized in Jesus. He has found that hope and that freedom. He's become part of a new generation that are praising Jesus and participating in Jesus Church. And you all have been a part of that. As I think about the next generation, I can picture like when we were back at Hayes Senior Center and Community Center, like the toddlers that would crawl through on the carpet and then walk and then scream down the hallways, usually for joy, but sometimes not. And then, others were reminding me of like their little siblings watching the older siblings in the Christmas program. And when do I get to be a sheep or whatever other character? It was just, it was super sweet. It wasn't the building that made it sweet. The building was just bricks. It just happened to be built in the same year that we started. But that building was the context of our faith formation. We could feel the fringes of the community of Apple Valley. We could feel our connection to Westview because we could see them across the street. We grew together while we were on mission. And then, not only did COVID happen, but I was getting this growing sense before COVID that year after year and month after month, it was $4,000 and then $5,000 and then $6,000 a month between the community center and our ministry center that we were spending in rent. And the problem with rent is once you spend it, it's gone. There's no investment. There's no, you're not getting anything back. And so from 2015 until today, we've been searching for a building, not because we believe a building is an end goal, but we believe building is a tool. It's the context for which faith formation can happen. It shows us that we're rooted in the community and that we're sticking around. And the building journey has been its own 1,000-mile journey. Every year, a building would come up that we thought might work, but there were obstacles that were too much. Either it was literally too much money, or it was too big, or it was too small, or it was too far away, or it was too much work, or there was too much to remodel, or there was the wrong zoning, or the city would say no, there was, and then we just didn't have money for a down payment. And so what I noticed during the COVID pandemic is what became comfortable, what became good and comfortable then became uncomfortable. Because God does that. When we get too comfortable, he changes our circumstances, not because he doesn't love us, he actually does love us, but it's so we can change our posture and our prayers towards him and maybe even towards ourselves. And that's what happened in the last couple years. We moved, and then we moved again, and this has been a beautiful place, an oasis. And yet what we found in this time was not only were we saving money and investing in that fund, but we were also discovering a little bit more of who we were and who we are and who God is calling us to be. And we discovered that you guys are doing mission out in the world, in your workplaces, in your neighborhoods, across the world. And we didn't need some fancy place. What we really just needed was somewhere that was modest, where we could plant those roots, but where that ministry could still happen in the world. And then June 9th, I get a text from Chad White who says, hey, did you know that there's this church for sale? On a Thursday night at about 7:14 or 15, in the meeting where we were talking about, okay, God, what are you calling us to? How are we going to make this happen? And if he doesn't send that text, this all doesn't happen. And yet God is in the midst of all that. And he just brought thing after thing after thing into place, and every obstacle is something that we've been, with God's help, able to climb over. So I kept using this baseball analogy of we got to get to first base. First base is just a letter of intent. Second base is actually having a signed purchase agreement. Third base is working through all the due diligence. But then fourth, getting home, that's actually like acquiring this. And guys, we're rounding third in the midst of this thing. It's crazy. So why am I telling you all that? So that the tambourine can go. I'm telling you all that because God's not done with us. He is writing more stories. He has more redemption. There are new generations of people that need to praise Jesus, that need to participate in his church. There need to be more Mike Courtneys in the world. And we're starting another 1,000-mile journey if we get to this point of like having this vote to say, yes, let's do this. Because there's this fine line between foolishness and faithfulness. And sometimes it's hard to tell. So we use wisdom to know if there's a difference. Because God often calls us to things that are scary and seem foolish, but we want to make sure that we're wise in the midst of that. And so we've been working, we've been praying. We have more faith, more passion, more wisdom than we had 12 years ago. We might have less people than we did before COVID, but we are stronger people. We've developed new faith muscles. We've learned a new dependence. And ultimately, the people who are here, you're not here for yourselves. Yes, you know that you receive healing and you receive goodness and you receive equipping, but you are here because you know that the goodness of Jesus Christ is not just for you. That is a great place to be. God sees that. I believe that. I believe our hearts are pure, our faith is full, and that, like I said, we need more mics. We need more babies to be dedicated. We need more new believers to be welcomed into the family. As I've looked at this building that we're looking at, I've already pictured like teenagers coming in and remembering like 5 years down the road, the corner of the kids' room where they first discovered that Jesus absolutely and unconditionally loves them. I've already seen other older teenagers sitting in the cafe that we want to take out of the kitchen and put the cafe in, where the table where they sat, where they got to talk about their faith in the context of friendships with people their age, and it made sense. I've already seen college students and 20-somethings sitting in the worship center, remembering when God captured their heart on a mission trip. And the same God that captured their heart is with them wherever they go. A building doesn't do that, friends, but it's the context for which faith formation can happen. I believe that this is the time where new generations can praise Jesus and participate in his church. I believe our hearts are right. I believe our faith is full. And I believe that we're being wise and faithful in the midst of this. So I have two asks today. Ushers are gonna come down and they're gonna give you a card. And you might think I'm asking for money. I'm inviting you to participate in something really cool. We have two asks, and I am inviting everyone that believes this church is their home to participate. We might not all be able to give the same and invest the same, but I'm asking for everyone to prayerfully participate. So the two asks are, one ask is a one-time ask for a big number. That big number is $145,400. Why 145? Because that's what we believe are the costs related to closing out the little bit of down payment that we have left, the closing costs that are associated, and the phase one renovation. to expand the worship center, expand the lobby, and make and maximize the ministry rooms for kids and adults. Also, Psalm 145 says that generation after generation stands in awe of God's work. Each one tells stories of his mighty acts. So I think that's just a cool side bonus. It could come down if we're able to give volunteer labor, but if we blow past that number, there's a few more renovations that we would like to do that we're just being cost conscious about. So trust me, we've got visions. But we see new generations in this place. So if you can give towards that one-time gift before the end of the year, that will help us fund not just the down payment, but also that renovation, that we can make the place warm and welcoming, not just for us, but for those that come in. So you might think, $145,000, that's kind of a lot of money. It is. It's way more than my car's worth, probably not my house, but we have about 50 giving units. So if each giving unit or family gave $2,900, we'd have it covered. Now we know not everyone has an extra $3,000 laying around, although some people can give way more than that. No guilt, just that's a reality. If you can give that before the end of the year, that helps us with that. If you can give it before the end of September, it really helps us. And because of some of the generosity of some leaders, we've asked some leaders to go first. There's at least $25,000 in matching funds. So let's say, you know what, I prayed about it. I can only give $1,500. That can be matched to be $3,000. Number one. Number two, because those leaders have already emailed our finance officer and said what that one-time number could be, we're actually over $50,000 towards the 145. As of 5 days of ask. So that's the first number. The second number is that we're looking to, now we'll have a mortgage, and the mortgage is a little more money because interest rates keep going up. And we have ministry investments to do, and we have mission projects to fund, and we have staff to hire. So we know that we have this ongoing monthly need that's a little more money than what we've had for the last year. So we're looking for an additional $3,000 a month. And we're looking for that as we're asking you to commit to a 2-year pledge for that. So you might give $1,000 a month. And if you already do that, I really appreciate that. God sees it. Let's say you pray about that $1,000 and you go, you know what, I could do an extra $50 a week. So you'd write $1,200 in the second box and you'd check month. Because what you're saying is we can give $1,200 a month as part of the ongoing ministry. Now, again, if we have 50 giving units and each of us gave $50 a month extra, and we had 5 new givers, so 5 people that don't currently give, and they gave $100 a month, that would all be covered. And honestly, because some of those leaders said yes, we're already halfway there. So cut those numbers in half. I mean, that's what God is doing. I believe that this is a faith-filled, not foolish invitation. I believe it's the right place at the right time for the right reasons, for the right mission. And I invite you to invest in it. I would love to have these cards back on or before September 11th, because September 11th is when we're going to do our building and budget vote. So Sunday night, we're going to have church. We're going to have a special congregational meeting on September 11th. And we're going to vote to say, yes, let's purchase this building, which is $1.1 million. And yes, we're going to approve this budget. And I'd love to be able to say, and we're 100% of the way there. We're 75% of the way there. We're 50% of the way there. I would love to be able to tell you that number so that you too can know if there's a difference between faith